No matter how much power you hold, no matter how wise and widely respected you may be, there's one force you're completely powerless to resist. No one in the world's capable of stopping the flow of time. True, spend enough money and you can usually prolong your life a little, but that's hardly the same as stopping or reversing the relentless march of the years. And back in the old days, there were rulers who thought systems of hereditary inheritance could grant them dominion over time. But open any history book, and you'll find plenty of proof that was just another way of struggling in vain against the inevitable. Strict codes of law, beautiful writings, wise teachings, all these, too, eventually fade away. Still, there are always people who struggle against that oppressive rule, studying the failures of those who went before, and seeking immortality through lines or deeds. And there are those who live ephemerally in the moment, ignoring the current of time entirely. Perhaps that's a valid means of escape in its own right. But no matter what approach we take, we're all fighting a losing battle. Some few among the most determined and brilliant may manage to build a milestone, but compared to the vast and unending road itself, such monuments aren't particularly significant. Time's an absolute tyrant. Everyone's powerless to resist its might. However, if you look at the matter from another angle, time's also our supreme problem solver, the ultimate healer of wounds. Given enough time, a Gordian knot too tangled for human hands to undo will naturally slip apart and return to its original form. Through the passing of the years, a hardened clump of stone that won't dissolve under water or melt in ice will disintegrate all on its own. Time doesn't rule through fear alone. Like all that's truly absolute, it exerts its power indifferently over good and bad alike. Running my usual morning course, I breathe in and out at my usual steady rhythm. There's no hesitation in my movements. I could run this route in my sleep by now. I'm not bothering to measure anything, but my heartbeat and calorie burn are probably exactly the same as they were yesterday. From a long-term perspective, it'll probably only be a few years before my current peak physical condition gives way to a slow, gradual curve of decline. But looking back over the last few years, my specs have stayed exceptionally consistent. I've never been negligent in keeping myself ready for emergencies of any kind. My master really beat that lesson into me, I guess. Running comes so naturally to me now that it's very easy to detach my mind from the movements of my body. Often find myself thinking over all sorts of things. My master was a great believer in staying on your toes, preparing for the extraordinary in the most ordinary of times. Always think ahead. Always stay prepared. Always follow your routine. In the course of my monotonous daily training, there were times when everything seemed so calm that I couldn't help doubting the importance of all that. But I've been plunged abruptly into crisis often enough to recognize that peace-addled complacency for what it is. Even just over the last year, this sort of readiness proved immeasurably important. Still, I'd really like things to stay relatively peaceful for a while. Trying to drive a subtle shadow of unease from my mind, I focus on carrying out my comfortably familiar peacetime training. The late summer sun creeps up into the sky, gradually warming the earth below. It's been 2 months since we returned to this place, and in reality, nothing too dramatic has happened in that time. Even compared to the peaceful time I spent here before, nothing's really, well, no. I suppose there have been a few minor changes to the previous routine. I'm back. For one thing, I've started consistently saying this phrase immediately after returning to the dorm. There were occasions when I said these words before, but it was a pretty uncommon event, reserved for when somebody happened to be in the lobby when I opened the door.
おかえりなさい、ユージ。
But now I've got a reason to announce my return every single time. Namely, there's always a certain someone here to say those words too. Sorry about slipping out. I was a little worried you might not be getting enough sleep, waking up at the same hour as me.
あなたと一緒に寝起きしているんだから、そうでもないわよ。はい、タオル。
Thanks. Taking the towel from Yumiko, I roughly scrubbed the sweat off my face. Phew. And when I look up again... An attractive young woman standing very close to me with a distinctly wistful expression on her face. Slightly exasperated, I heave a quiet sigh. Look, Yumiko, I think we've been over this before.
いや、わかってるから。
Waving her hands in the air, she interrupts my earnest warning in a flustered tone of voice.
ここは公共の場。だからそういうのは部屋に戻ってからにしないかって。そうよ、ね。
That's right. Glad to see you got the message after all.
だから、軽く抱きしめるだけで、今は我慢するから。
Look, woman. Is this seriously the same person who used to swing a box cutter at me every time we met? Turning her blushing face slightly away, she flutters brief glances in my direction. Don't think I'll say this to the girl herself, but it's not far from the sort of come-hither look you'd get from pros in the red light district. I mean, yes, I do understand this is the product of sincere affection, but seriously, when the girl's this blatant about it, it's hard not to get suspicious. Something Makina told me once comes to mind, to wit, women of the Kudera type tribe are a pain in the ass. They're not used to showing affection, so once they do go sweet, they'll give everyone in a 3-mile radius cavities. That said, giving her the cold shoulder would just be making more trouble for myself in the long run. Just yesterday, I tried brushing off Yumiko's excessive demands for public displays of affection. She retaliated with hours of sulky, reproachful glaring. Still falls well into the cute category, but the effort involved in smoothing her feathers after the fact only amplifies the pain in the ass factor. And so, I decide to give in to her demands like the hopeless sap I am. Fine. Here we go. Pulling Yumiko over to me, I embrace her lightly at arm's length. I did wipe myself down a little with the towel, but I am still just back from exercising. Can't exactly go for the bear hug. And as if to say, the hell with your thoughtfulness, the woman dives forward and nuzzles her pretty face against my chest. Already in heat, first thing in the damn morning. I think you're aware, but I kind of stink right now. Don't cling to me like that.
いいな、ユージの匂い。男って感じがすごくする。
If your past self could see you now, she'd probably break down in tears.
そうかしら。むしろ昔の私は幸せすぎて泣くんじゃないかしら。動いちゃダメ。じっとしてて。
Honestly. Hey, Yumiko.
なに?
Charming as it is to watch you get drunk off my body, I think it's time for you to back off now.
何よ。もうちょっと堪能させなさいよ。いつ触っても飽きないな。この熱い胸板。これが毎日私を押しつぶして。
Well, I don't personally mind if you want to continue grunting in satisfaction while fondling my pecs, but I recommend taking a look behind you first.
いいな、ユージの匂い。
いやー、人間長く生きてみるものね。こんな光景を毎日見ることになるなんて少しも想像できなかったわよ。人間の無限の可能性を感じるのはみちる様だけではなかったのですね。この小峰幸、毎日が発見の連続です。
Makina trots energetically up to Yumiko, currently frozen solid. The intensity of her grin is genuinely unpleasant.
お兄ちゃんの裸思い出して燃え上がっちゃったんだよな。でも朝からこういうことしてると夜の生活バレバレだからやめとけな。
Thumping Yumiko's shoulder in a companionable way, she barrages her with merciless words. The young woman in question, her hand still frozen pitifully in the air where my chest had been, looks around the lobby like a high school drama student doing their best imitation of a robot.
ああ、 朝から脂っこいの見ちゃったせいで胸焼けしたわ。戻ろう戻ろう。そうですね。榊さん、どうもごちそうさまでした。由美子、最低限の人間の尊厳は保つようにしなさいよね。
One by one, the others give the statue-stiff Yumiko a friendly slap on the shoulders, then saunter off, mocking her. There's some real affection underneath those wry smiles, but also, undeniably a good deal of exasperation mixed in as well. Hey, Yumiko. You alright? I'm going to take that as a no. Yumiko, stunned speechless, lets out an anguished grunting moan of the sort I'd usually expect from Michiru. We've actually had more than a few incidents like this over the last 2 months, but today was exceptionally bad. Well, I tried to warn her. Maybe that will be a bit of a lesson to the girl. Can only pray she'll finally cut down on the public dere somewhat. Earth to Yumiko. I'm going back to the room now, alright? Shaking my head with a smile, I head back to my room. By manipulating the Minister of Land, Transport, and Infrastructure, we succeeded in removing Sakaki Michiaki from his role at the top of the East Beach Group, putting an end to his pursuit of Yumiko. The director we successfully raised up as an opposing power, essentially a puppet of the government, has already discontinued Michiaki's aggressive strategy of expansion in favor of a much more stable and low-risk style of management. The East Beach Group has shed its image as the Sakaki family's personal empire. With surprising speed, it's being reformed into a very different kind of enterprise. Someday, people probably won't even remember that they were once mocked as bandits. As for Mihama Academy, it's going to be closing its doors. There were potential PR issues because of its connection to Michiaki's struggle with his daughter. And on a purely practical level, the new management took issue with the lavish, inefficient spending that defined Mihama's administration. They did explore restoring it as a more conventional school, but given the location and circumstances, it was estimated that attracting a sufficiently large student body would prove difficult. In the end, the project was simply abandoned. Then again, from beginning to end, the school never had more than 6 students. Putting aside the facilities and funding, once that framework changed, Mihama would have still stopped being what it was. In exchange for the academy's closure, the dormitory was allowed to remain open in a different form. Without a school attached, it's become a simple apartment building. They entrusted the management of the former students for the time being, enabling us to continue our lives virtually the same as before. Everyone's using this place as a launchpad for the next stage of their lives. Amane will apparently be leaving to help out at her family's traditional restaurant, with Makina once their preparations are in order. Sachi and Michiru are going to be transferring together to a boarding school the principal recommended. However, even if we all end up leaving this place behind, we've made plans to periodically meet up again. The 6 of us may have been born in different places, but in a way, we all feel as if we grew up here. Although we've regained our familiar daily life, little by little, things are starting to change. And Yumiko is certainly no exception. After dramatically transforming her world, she's trying to adapt to a whole new routine. Thanks for helping with breakfast.
はい、どうぞ。
Eating my meals around this table with Yumiko already feels completely natural. Today, we've got grilled salmon and boiled greens and soy sauce that I made, and soup and rice courtesy of Yumiko. Yeah, looks like you've gotten the hang of miso soup now.
本当？
Why would I lie now? It really is good.
よかった。嬉しい。
Her eyes full of relief, Yumiko favors me with a sincere smile. Since we started living together in my room, the girls gradually eased her way into cooking. At first she was burning pans more often than cooking food, but under the strict tutelage of Madame Suo Amane, she's finally learned how to make miso and other simple soups. You're learning boiled food next, right? Amane was pretty enthusiastic. Sounds like she enjoys teaching you.
あまねの指導ってちょっと怖いのよね。何か体があるような気がしてならないわ。
Well, the 2 of them have finally gotten friendly enough to use each other's first names, so I guess that lingering tinge of jealousy isn't anything to be that worried about. Amane is probably just playing around for the most part, but since I'm clearly part of the issue, I can't exactly stick my head in either way. Seeking a change of subject, I reach for my rice bowl. Looks like you got the rice just right, too. When I look across the table again to praise Yumiko, I find her chopsticks paused hesitantly in midair. What's wrong? You're not eating. I call out to her again. She starts a little, then smiles.
ちょっとね。
Morning light flows in softly through the window. The faint touch of sun on her skin makes Yumiko's smile seem almost eerily gentle.
なんだか今でも信じられない。こうしてみんなと楽しく生活してユージとも一緒に暮らせるなんて昔だったら絶対にありえなかった。
Before, Yumiko was always alone. The girl absolutely didn't choose that solitude. She always longed to have someone at her side, and many times she tried to convince herself there would be. Those hopes were betrayed again and again. Yumiko plunged into despair, gave up on connecting with others, and hid herself from the world. But after she came to this dorm, her walls slowly began to crumble.
小さい頃あんなに人が怖くてもう関わることなんてやめようって思ってたのに。
Yumiko warmed up to her classmates. She fell in love with me, and her solitude finally came to an end. Considering the way she used to be, it's not surprising she'd find all this a little hard to believe.
ありがとう、ユージ。
Yeah, I'm happy for you, Yumiko. That smile is coming from the heart. Yumiko looks genuinely content, like someone who's gotten everything they've ever wanted. But when the girl talks about how happy she is, sometimes I see a very slight shadow fall across her face. And although it's just speculation on my part, I think I know why. Through our trap, Sakaki Michiaki lost everything he had built in a single day. Tripped up by the willful daughter he wanted to manipulate like a puppet, the man vanished in defeat. The supremely arrogant emperor who stepped out of the car that day left a crushed and broken man. Those deeply contrasting images are still crystal clear in my memory. And for Yumiko, his daughter, that moment must have left a far stronger impression. There wasn't just hatred in her eyes as she quietly watched her father disappear. I'm sure many complex emotions were running through her mind. Following that incident, Sakaki Michiaki essentially abandoned both his personal and professional life. The mass media he'd previously muzzled through force briefly latched on to the dramatic overthrown tyrant storyline, but in time their interest died out. By now, the man's already becoming part of the past. Michiaki still got nearly a 10% stake in the group, along with a new honorary position, so he shouldn't exactly be starving. Still, he's been lying low to the point that it's almost unsettling. Sometimes, I can't help wondering if he's lurking in the shadows somewhere, steadily plotting revenge and working toward a comeback. But that hypothesis doesn't really stand up to scrutiny. I couldn't see any hint of spirit in the hollowed-out shell of a man who climbed back into his car that day. And judging from the way she watched him go, Yumiko probably sensed something similar. Her father had been the focus of all her hatred for years. He was the ruthless creature who chained her down. But underneath his armor, he was just one incredibly frail human being, every bit as weak as Yumiko herself once was. Watching her father stripped naked and chased from his place in the world, the girl no doubt felt a painful twinge of recognition and empathy. To survive, to carve out her own place in the world, there was no choice but to overthrow him. But that doesn't mean it left an entirely pleasant taste in her mouth. Yumiko. Again, there's that slight hint of listlessness in her expression. Even when Yumiko's acting cheerful, I can't help picking out those slight signs of fraying at the seams. You keep stopping your chopsticks.
大丈夫。なんでもないわ。
I've been refraining from asking Yumiko about this. She obviously hasn't even begun to sort out her own feelings yet. It'd just be cruel to make her dwell on it even further. Alright. I know what you're thinking about.
何？
Moving smoothly around the table, I push her down to the floor. We got interrupted halfway through, didn't we? Maybe you wanted something like this?
そんな。そうでもあるけど。
So I covered up with a white lie. And Yumiko, for her part, accepts that lie.
ダメよ。急にそんな。まだこんなに明るいのに。
Her words are hesitant, but her fingers twine through mine. As if to request the next step, her entire palm squirms coquettishly in my grasp. Your hands seem to have a different opinion. I'm not sure who to believe.
もう意地悪言わないで。
Seems she wasn't really rejecting me. I leaned down and pressed my lips against hers. Pretending not to notice the wounds on each other's backs, we run our hands across the undamaged surface alone, seeking comfort. I know we'll have to treat those wounds eventually, but right now, we need time. We need this. Yumiko hasn't had real peace for practically her entire life. At the very least, I want to give her a chance to think. Suddenly, shrill electronic music fills the air. We stop and smile wryly at each other.
ごめんね。ちょっと待って。
With one more brief peck on my lips, Yumiko pulls herself out from under me. She flips open her bleeding cell phone and glances at the screen.
弁護士さんだわ。
After letting me know that, she picks herself up off the floor and presses the answer button.
はい、もしもし。はい、先日はありがとうございました。
Yumiko recently hired a lawyer to sort through the legal issues involved with our situation. He's also helping make arrangements for managing the Sakaki family's property now that Michiaki's all but fallen off the face of the earth. The family affairs are understandably chaotic at the moment, so it's a lot for Yumiko to handle on her own. Still, she's been diligently negotiating, setting off what needs to be sold, and trying to keep things from falling apart. I assume this phone call is another update on their progress. But the peaceful conversation I was expecting changes dramatically with a small cry of surprise from Yumiko. It's not just the tone of her voice. The calm look on her face gives way to a grim and severe expression. More than a little concerned, I pick myself up off the ground and watch.
はい。はい、わかりました。では明日いらした時に詳しく。はい。
After hanging up the phone, Yumiko gazes down at the screen in disbelief, not speaking a word. Did something happen? This time, I find myself unable to bite my tongue. Yumiko, her face still blank with shock, finally turns to face me.
あの人が。
That man. There's nothing in that phrase to suggest Yumiko is talking about a relative, but there's only one person she refers to that way.
あの人が私に全て譲渡したそうよ。
Everything. Confusion in her eyes, Yumiko nods shortly.
あの人の持っていた全ての株式を私に譲渡したって。
Sakaki Michiaki did. Yumiko doesn't respond. She just gazes intently down at her phone, complex emotions flitting across her face, almost as if the man in question was standing in front of her. It's the same expression that was on her face 2 months ago as she watched her father disappear. An expression of loneliness, anger, and profound sorrow. Three years later. The muted murmur of a television echoes through the spacious room. There's no other sound to be heard. Half submerged in a plush sofa, I abruptly open my eyes at the sound of a voice on the television. It's a very familiar voice, one I've been hearing on a daily basis for a long time now. Must have nodded off halfway through. I move my eyes back to the enormous LCD screen mounted on the wall. Yumiko, wearing a tailored professional suit and a resolute expression, listens carefully to her interviewer's question and offers a precise response. That was a pretty nostalgic dream just now. Maybe it's because I spoke with Amane on the phone the other day, but I dreamed of our time at Mihama Academy. I find my mind running back over the events that turned Yumiko into the public figure she is today. When Sakaki Michiaki transferred all of his stock in the East Beach Group to her, Yumiko thought long and hard about what to do with it all. She even considered selling the entire stake and donating the proceeds to charity. It was, in some sense, tainted money, and more importantly, slightly less than 10% of that company still amounted to an astronomical sum of money. Yumiko wanted to live a peaceful life on her own terms, and she knew that kind of money would change everything. But after much agonizing, she ultimately decided to accept it. And then, while using her newfound wealth to attend a top-flight university, she started up her own company, one that's proven wildly successful. Right now, it's becoming increasingly frequent for her to appear in the media as an exemplary young entrepreneur. As to why Yumiko voluntarily entered the same corporate world that tied her down for so long, I've never asked her point blank. But I do have the feeling it's got something to do with the open wounds she's been enduring for the last 3 years. Probably the same reason she didn't sell off this house. Despite all the bad memories it must hold for her, we're living here together now. I guess there comes a point when avoidance doesn't make your scars ache any less. My other cell phone begins to ring for the first time in 3 years. After carefully confirming the name on the caller ID screen, I hit the answer button. Hey, been a while.
ええ、本当にね。
There's a moment of silence, but in that time, many unspoken words passed between us. Although I was officially reprimanded after the incident 3 years ago, a certain influential force in Ichigai's upper echelons shielded me from more serious charges and arranged for my reinstatement on the reserve. That said, I was no longer interested in returning to my previous workplace, as supporting Yumiko had become my first and foremost priority. I took my chance to formally resign. Naturally, this led to an estrangement from JB. There was one and only thing I'd asked of her at the end. It was a job better suited to a detective agency than a professional of her caliber, but I asked anyway, fully aware of my selfishness. JB accepted that strange request without particular comment. I didn't ask why, but it felt as though she wanted to tie up that same loose end herself.
3年前に頼まれてた最後のお願いについて分かったことがあるわ。
I already knew the reason she was making this phone call. It has to mean she's found some sort of answer to that odd request I made of her. There was no longer any other reason for JB to contact me. I see. Thank you, Julia.
言っておくけど、あまりいい結果は期待できないかもよ。
It's all right. I still want to know.
分かったわ。
I mechanically jot down JB's indifferent words in a notepad that was lying nearby. As the trees outside sway in the wind, a muted sound of rustling foliage carries through the otherwise silent room. After ending the call with JB, I tuck the black cell phone away and take out the one I normally use. The call history is filled almost entirely with a single number. Clicking on it, I bring the phone to my ear.
"珍しいのね。ユージの方から外に出ようだなんて。
Yumiko and I walk leisurely down the road leading to the station. She's got a lot on her plate at work right now, but the moment I called, she managed to open her schedule. Yeah, there's something I wanted to talk about. Sorry about dragging you out.
ユージとこうやって出かけること自体が久しぶりだし、全く構わないわよ。
Yumiko smiles happily. I haven't told her the real reason for this outing yet. That was a deliberate decision. I didn't want it to be weighing on her mind from the very start.
今日はどこに行くの？
It's a slightly far off place, actually.
え？にしてはすごく軽装で出てきたけど。
True. Now that you mention it. Yumiko glances over at me with a puzzled expression. This vague, riddle-like conversation continues as we climb the stairs to our local train station. Changing trains after a few stops, we make our way out of central Tokyo and head for the south part of the Kanto region. Colorful port cities flash by outside windows. Eventually, these give way to peaceful-looking little valley towns. As vivid shades of green start to dominate the scenery, Yumiko grows progressively quieter. The train's heading straight for that place. We wouldn't be going there without a good reason. Yumiko is no doubt starting to realize this won't be the lighthearted outing she'd expected. Our destination lies in the town where Yumiko spent the loneliest years of her childhood. By the time we're standing before the building itself, her expression's painfully tense.
ユージ、どういう ことなの？
It's a large general hospital at the outskirts of a sleepy country town. A hospital the two of us visited several times together. But there should no longer be any reason for us to come here.
もうお母さんもいないのに。
Yumiko's mother, Sakaki Misiako, quietly passed away 2 years ago. After the usual formalities with her relatives, Yumiko told me she'd never be setting foot in this town again. There were too many sad memories in this place. Just being here was painful for her. I know it's hard coming back here, but there's something we can't talk about anywhere else.
ここでないとできない話？
Yeah. We proceed slowly through the familiar hallways. After climbing the stairs, we make our way toward a private room in the very back, then come to a halt in front of the door. There's a certain person who's been visiting this place virtually every week since your mother's death.
ここへ？
Yeah. You know who I'm talking about, right? Yumiko casts her eyes down, pursing her lips slightly. Looks as though a name's come to mind. I don't know why any more than you do, but it's a fact. That person's been coming here for years, and begging the hospital staff not to breathe a word of those visits to anyone.
私たちに知られたくないから。
I silently nod. I know it'd be tough for you to meet him face to face all of a sudden, Yumiko. I'm planning to go in there and ask why he's doing this. Do you think you could wait outside and listen? We can head back home now, if that's what you want. I'll promise you never to bring that person up again. But if there's still a bad taste lingering in your mouth, instead of trying to forget the past, how about we look for a way to accept it? Her eyes still turned downward toward the floor. Yumiko mutters quietly.
ユウジはもうずっと前に気づいていたのね。私があのことをまだ引きずっていることに。
Yeah. Sorry for not saying anything until now.
いいの。
There must be countless memories running through Yumiko's head right now. Her empty childhood, the faint hope she found, only to have it snatched away. The man who took everything away, her crushing solitude, the artificial cage where her heart slowly began to thaw. Her first act of real resistance, or escape. At the end of a long struggle, a confrontation with everything on the line. And the former usurper, who had everything taken away from him. What does his daughter feel for him now? Hatred? Something else entirely? I can practically see the tangled ball of conflicted emotions wriggling inside her mind. Eventually, Yumiko raises her head, her expressions firm and determined.
私、聞くわ。ここで待ってる。
I see. All right then. Nodding to Yumiko, I step forward and slowly open the door to the hospital room. With the heavy sound of wood sliding across the floor, sunshine from the far window floods out into the hallway. I'm coming in. Hey everyone, J Square John Jeremy here. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to click on subscribe and the bell icon to ensure you're kept up to date on the channel. Until next time, so long and take care.